For our final keynote session of the day, please welcome James Reinhart, co-founder and CEO of ThredUp, and Milan Daniels, founder of Otrium, for a conversation on scaling disruptive business models, meeting consumer demand for sustainable and affordable fashion. James and Milan will be interviewed by Jill Gagan, editor at Drapers.
Everybody, and welcome James and Milan. Thanks so much for being here with us this afternoon.
Thank you for having us.
So let's start off with each of you giving us a brief introduction to your business, just in case anybody isn't overly familiar with your businesses. James, do you want to start off telling us about ThredUp?
Sure, great to be here. So ThredUp is a managed marketplace for secondhand goods. So we help consumers easily clean out their closets. They send all the stuff to us. Then we put it all online in one of our warehouses around the world, and we make it very convenient for people to shop secondhand. So we sell 35,000 brands across 100 categories, based in the US, and we now have a business in Europe.
Brilliant, thanks, James. And Milan, tell us about Otrium.
So Otrium is a managed marketplace that helps 500 brands to make sure that every clothing item they produce is worn. Excess inventory is a huge problem in the fashion industry, and we want to make sure that none of these items end up in landfills or even worse, get burned. And we have to create a technology and a platform and a community of close to 5 million members that can shop these items directly from the brands through our managed marketplace services. And in that way, brands can generate the right recovery value, control the visibility of their off-price goods, which is really important to protect brand equity. And yeah, we can step-by-step solve the in-sold inventory problem.
Brilliant. You mentioned technology there, Milan. So I really want to talk about the technology behind the scenes in each of your businesses. So there's so much more than retail platforms. You've got vast supply chains, logistics, warehouses, teams. Can you talk about some of the innovation in your operations and the tech leading that? James, you kick us off.
Sure, you want to go?
Yeah, about me? Yeah, I think a lot of people underestimate how much innovation and almost like industrial power goes into building a managed marketplace. Our business takes in hundreds of millions of retail value, and those are physical goods, and some of these goods are returns or they come from retail stores, so you need to refurbish them in some form of way or at least pick and pack them and make them sellable. And doing that in an automated and streamlined way is something that we spend a lot of time, money, and innovation on to get right. Think about automated picking and packing stations. Think about smart wearables for our pickers and packers so that they can find goods quicker and distribute them faster. Really? There's a lot of time and energy that goes into that, and the consumer doesn't see that. They only see that the package is delivered within 2 days, which is key.
Absolutely. And James, can you talk about some of the automation, the AI, and just some of the, I guess, the efficiencies and opportunities that creates at ThredUp?
Yeah, sure. We do all of those things also, and they happen to be used, right? And so imagine your closet full of stuff. If you notice, if you look at your clothes, there's no barcodes on any of that, right? And so it's not like you can just scan the stuff into a facility. We actually have to inspect it all and then create sort of the digital tracing so that we can sell that online. So today we're processing north of 150 to as much as 200,000 pieces of clothing every day. Each one of those is unique. And then we're running that through our facility, and everything from inspection to how we tag that unique piece of clothing to the photographs we take. We're taking sometimes 500,000 photos a day, through our facilities. And then, and since we couldn't be up here without talking about some AI, we have some artificial intelligence work that we're doing in our facilities to tag the garments automatically to make them available for sale with all the right metadata, similar to what Milan does. So a lot of technology behind the scenes. It's messy, it's hard, it's complicated, costs a bunch of money, but we ultimately think it's all that work that delivers a great customer experience.
Absolutely. And both of the businesses work with brands in very different ways. So James, could you tell us a little bit about ThredUp's resale as a service and what that involves?
Sure. I ultimately think every brand is going to have a circular strategy. How do you get product back? How do you then resell product to customers? And so ThredUp has a platform behind the scenes where we help power that for brands. And what I mean by that is that so we now work with close to 50 brands in the US, and you can walk into one of several hundred stores, get a co-branded ThredUp cleanout kit, send us those items from a given brand. We will process those items on behalf of a brand and sell them in a resale shop that is fully branded. And so we work with Kate Spade and J. Crew as two good examples. And so if you were to go to katespade.com in the US, you could click on a pre-loved tab, and you would see all secondhand Kate Spade products, and then you'd be able to shop those from the brand. And I ultimately think we'll be able to power this for hundreds, if not thousands of brands over time. I think it's a pretty exciting part of what we do.
Fantastic. And Milan, you work with brands in a different way, so dealing with their excess stock. So you touched on that briefly earlier, but could you tell us a little bit more about how that works and I guess the scale of the problem across the fashion industry?
So unsold inventory in off-price fashion is now a $250 billion global market, growing to about $500 billion over the coming 10 years, which will make it the biggest category within fashion. And the crazy thing is that a lot of fashion brands don't have any truly dedicated teams or technology or resources or time going towards it, even though on average 12% of all the clothing that they produce stays unsold and is in their warehouse collecting dust. So what we've built is really the data and the distribution network with a warehouse in Ohio, US, in Almelo, the Netherlands, in Rugby, UK, to help brands to instantly get all of those services out of their hands into a solution that is specialized into it. We also partner up on the technology side. We have a dynamic pricing engine. We obviously have a community of millions and millions of shoppers, also on the B2B side, stock buyers. So really actually taking something which is key for brands that they don't have in-house and allowing them to, off the shelf, have the best solutions for it.
Brilliant. And scaling kind of these size of businesses that you both have created comes with many, many challenges. And one of those I wanted to touch on was company culture. So as you scale and grow, how do you keep that tenacity of a startup culture? How do you kind of encourage your employees to be innovative and I guess to teach them to not be afraid to fail? We've heard a lot about that earlier today, so it'd be great to get your insights on that.
Well, you're a little bit past startup phase now.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of our key, tenets is how do we get better as we get bigger? And so when you start a company with the idea that you didn't want to work at a big company. And then you spend all of your life trying to build a big company that you don't want to work at, right? It's like the great injustice of starting a business. And so I'm sort of relentless internally around just killing all semblance of big company culture. And so the minute we hear that there are politics in the organization, we stamp it out. The minute we hear that people feel like they're not growing in their careers, we have a career growth conversation. The minute that people feel like they can't get things done because there's too much process, we try and break the process so they can move faster. And I think that employees, all of us, we get the companies we deserve. And if we allow ourselves to be part of crappy, big, slow-moving, non-innovative companies, then it's our own fault. And so I'm quite religious about telling everybody at ThredUp that you get what you deserve. And if you let us be a big, boring, non-innovative company, then that's what we'll be. Yeah. But I'm going to work really hard to make sure that doesn't happen.
Absolutely. And so do you encourage that, I guess, that challenging people in more senior positions? And how does that kind of work, James?
Yeah, I mean, just in the last few weeks, we had a company all-hands meeting, and the one thing I passed along to everyone was, I want everyone in the organization to be slightly more unreasonable. Like, don't be mean, but be slightly more unreasonable with your expectations around how things get done, how fast we move as an organization, how we make decisions. And so I think you sort of constantly need a jolt. And then what's been so fascinating is across the organization, in email and Slack and some of the Asana work, you see people hashtagging be unreasonable. And it's just like a subtle way to say, do we really need to have a meeting about this? Or can we make this decision right now? And so I think those are the types of things that as a CEO and as a founder, you need to really like drive home.
Brilliant. And Milan, would you agree with that, or how do you kind of ensure that the business keeps that startup culture?
I think what's really important, at least for us, is that we are working on something which is more mission-driven. So our purpose is all clothing should be worn. And when you start off 7 years ago, you have a certain idea of how to solve that. But as you grow and as your team grows and as more people get involved and you learn more, it's actually that purpose that keeps everybody looking into the same direction and allows your team to innovate independently instead of always having it top down. So I would really say like having a strong value, having a purpose-led company is an effective and a great and exciting way to keep your team inspired, motivated, and closely knitted together. And yeah, that has been a huge success for us. And people that work at Otrium, the OT members, that's how we call them, they really want to build the best solution possible, but they also want to build a better industry. And that's what, makes them come back.
So that's really part of the reason they've joined the business in the first place.
Exactly.
Brilliant. And what other challenges are you facing within your businesses? I know everybody in the current climate is facing a myriad of different kind of obstacles. So can you kind of highlight some of the challenges you're facing and how you're navigating those most importantly? Milan, I'll start with you.
Yeah. I mean, the past years have been very eventful for everybody. So navigating your growing business through very difficult economical climates is a huge challenge on its own. But I think moving forward, for us, what is a great challenge that we're really excited about to take hands-on is one, being a business that is both active in the States and in Europe. And really getting those two different cultures and entirely different ways of operating together in one business. And secondly, something that I'm personally very passionate about, just creating the most efficient and scalable logistics and distribution network that there is, that really specializes in making all these unsold inventory items as valuable as possible. And there's so much innovation that comes into that. But we are very sure and committed that if you build that infrastructure, that creates tremendous value for the coming decades.
Brilliant. And you mentioned the cultures and bringing together kind of the US and the European business. So how are you doing that? Well, how are you bringing everyone together?
You'll lose a lot of sleep because you're in like every time zone all at once. So that's one thing. It's not best for your night rest. It's very interesting, especially for us because our leadership team is decentralized. So we have our execs in New York, we have them in London, in Amsterdam. So we're really like from top down, decentralized as an organization. And some things that we need to work extra hard on is communication. We do many offsites. Even though we're a hybrid workforce, we come together once every 2 months to really strategize in person and make sure that nothing is lost in translation, which is something that can happen. And yeah, from a broader team, it's I think about being mindful of it. You don't have to overstate it, but just understanding that working with vastly different cultures for a single purpose isn't easy, but if you all are aware of it and work towards it, you can make it happen.
Absolutely. James, you're nodding there. Is that a challenge you're facing, or what are you navigating at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think Milan's point also about mission sort of resonates, because I actually think the hardest part right now is keeping the team, inspired and motivated. Like, raise your hand if you thought the last couple of years have been super easy, right? Like, no one ever. It gets hard out there, and it's hard for employees to stay engaged. If you work at a company where the stock price is down 50%, right? You're like, man, am I 50% dumber than I was like 2 years ago? And the answer is no. And so reminding employees about the mission and like what we're trying to do and keeping people focused on the task, and I think is actually the hardest part. Because at the end of the day, every company is really a product of its people.
Yeah.
And so I think that has been the biggest challenge, and one I think we've attacked and done quite well. But every day when I wake up and I think about all the problems we have to solve, which are innumerable in operations and logistics and tech, if our best people quit, it's way worse, right? And so we think a lot about the team and the talent there.
Absolutely, and keeping the team motivated. So
Yes.
how do you do that in today's climate? How do you keep people focused and on board?
A lot of hugs, a lot of high fives. No, I think the mission piece is really important. We do really remind people of what we're trying to do. And we also remind people that, at the end of the day, like, we're not curing cancer. We're not going to the moon. We sell clothes on the internet. And reminding people of like to not take themselves too seriously, enjoy the colleagues that they work with, enjoy the problems that we're solving. I think there is some integration of work and life and balance that's really important. Because I think when you get wrapped up in it too much and too tight, I think that's when people really start to dislike their job.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And speaking of this, it's a really innovative, it's a fun, it's an enjoyable industry, the fashion industry. So what do you think are the biggest opportunities for growth over the next 5 years? So can you tell us any plans about expansion? Can you tell us what areas you're investing in? Let's do some future gazing.
Future gazing. I think the role of government is going to be something to be watched. I think in Europe around producer responsibility and regulation around what fashion brands produce and how and why and how we track it. I think in the U.S. there's legislation that's probably a few years behind Europe in this case, but there's even bills in the U.S. right now to make it tax-free to shop secondhand. And so I think government is starting to figure out, much like they did with carbon taxes and EV credits, what is the role that we play in making the fashion world more sustainable? Because if it is a $500 billion problem, $500 billion opportunity, government needs to figure that out a little bit. And so I think those are the areas that I'm excited about.
You had a great first day at Shop Talk Europe. Please join us for welcome drinks on the show floor until 6.
Oh, drinks. Nice. Let's go.
I think we've got a few more minutes.
This is when they pass out the champagne to the audience, though, I think. So it's fine.
Telling us we all need a drink.
But no, I think the role of government is really interesting. And I think for us, there's no question that when you talk to young people today, they care about sustainability. And they care about the planet. And they care about their kids and the planet that we all are going to give them. And so I'm quite excited about this generational shift.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's not a problem that's going to go away. It's going to become more pertinent for every business, Milan. So where do you see the opportunities over the next few years for Outram?
Yeah, and I also just wanted to speak to your question about like keeping your team engaged and excited. Like the fashion industry is one of the most exciting industries in the world. It's an art form. It's a basic human need. It's plagued with inefficiencies and it needs to be solved, and it's vastly big, 1.6 trillion. So that kind of puzzle is so cool to work on every single day, and there are so many pieces. And then, to the other point, sustainability now is really going into acceleration with legislation and laws being passed, which we are really happy about. We kind of see it having an as big impact on brands and businesses as GDPR had in Europe, which was very much underestimated before it kicked in. But when it actually kicked in, everybody was like, oh shit, we need to
do something.
we need to get some stuff together. And that stuff is happening now. And any fashion brand that has more than 50 million in annual revenues will have to bring out an annual sustainability report. They will have to report on the different elements of their life cycle of a product, manufacturing, wearing, what they do with the items that are left. That's going to have such a vast impact, and we're really excited that we can help brands in navigating that shift through our technology and through our services. But it's something big.
Absolutely. And how are you getting your business ready for that? So are there any kind of practical steps that you're taking already to make sure that you're have everything in line that needs to be?
So for us, it's a bit twofold, because our core business solves a sustainability challenge. A lot of these items would end up in landfills, or they would be sold for cents on a dollar, and we take them in, we invest in them to get them to be sold at a better recovery value. So that exercise on its own contributes a lot to the wear it element of sustainability reporting. But next to that, you have to be diligent. So we have a sustainability team, and we bring out our own annual sustainability reports, and we want to hold ourselves extremely accountable that we really lead the way and do it across the organization, not just because we have a core model that does good, that doesn't give us a pass to not on every single vertical still do the hard work.
Absolutely. It's a change that's happening, and it's something that everybody needs to wake up and pay attention to if they're not already doing so. But I'm afraid we're out of time, unbelievably. Please join me in thanking James and Milan for their insights this afternoon.
Thank you.